I'm a 32-year-old man, and I'm getting married to my longtime girlfriend soon. What should be one of the happiest moments of my life has turned into a heartbreaking ordeal because of a deepening rift in my family. To give you some background, I'm my parents' biological son, and when I was 12, they adopted two boys who were biological siblings, Jack, who was 8, and Liam, who was 5. From the very beginning, it was clear that things were going to be tough. Jack came with severe behavioral issues due to some intense trauma. I'll spare the details, but it was significant. I tried my hardest to be understanding, but living with him was nothing short of exhausting. His outbursts were constant, and I often felt like I was walking on eggshells, terrified of setting him off. As we grew older, I continued to try to be there for Jack, despite everything. A few years ago, Jack fell into a devastating drug addiction. I stood by him through his darkest moments, supporting him through rehab, and doing everything I could to help him get back on his feet. It was draining and heartbreaking, but I did it because I loved him and believed that, despite our challenges, we were still brothers. The situation came to a head recently at a Sunday dinner at my parents' house. My son was working on his summer homework, which involved creating a family tree. He innocently asked Jack if he wanted to be included, and Jack just flat out said no. He didn't want to be part of it because, in his exact words, we're not real brothers. He said it so casually, like it was the most obvious thing in the world, with no regard for how much it would cut me to the core. I was utterly stunned, but what shattered me even more was that Liam, who I've always felt closer to, just sat there in silence. He didn't say a word. He didn't defend me or even acknowledge how hurtful Jack's words were. He just let it happen. I've tried so hard to be supportive of both of them, especially Jack, despite the endless challenges. So, for Jack to say that, and for Liam to do nothing, felt like a gut punch. It was as if they were both telling me that I was never truly part of their family. I decided to uninvite both Jack and Liam from my wedding. My fiancé has been nothing but supportive of my decision, but my parents are furious. They've made it clear that if Jack and Liam aren't invited, they won't attend either. It feels like history is repeating itself, with my parents once again prioritizing Jack over me, no matter how much it hurts me. I'm absolutely heartbroken that my parents would choose to miss my wedding rather than support me in this. I know Jack has been through a lot, but I've done everything I can to be there for him and for Liam, despite all the heartache. And now, I feel like I'm the one being punished for finally standing up for myself and setting some boundaries. Update 1. I decided I needed to talk to Liam. We met up at a pub, and I just laid it all out there. How hurt I was when he didn't say anything after Jack made that awful comment about not being real brothers. I was half expecting him to defend himself, but what I got was something entirely different. Liam confessed that he's been living in fear of Jack for years. He told me he kept quiet that night because he was terrified of setting Jack off, not because he agreed with him. Then he dropped a bombshell. Despite being Jack's biological brother, he's felt just as much of an outsider in our family as I have. The constant pressure from our parents to cater to Jack's every whim has worn him down, too. Liam assured me that he's always seen me as his brother and that he regrets not standing up for me sooner. Hearing that was a huge relief. He's completely on my side now, and we agreed that if Jack can't respect me as a brother, he has no place at my wedding, or in our lives. But just when I thought things couldn't get more intense, my parents decided to make everything worse. I sat them down and explained why I uninvited Jack, hoping they'd understand. Instead, they threw down an ultimatum. If Jack isn't invited, they're not coming to my wedding. No room for discussion, no empathy, just flat-out refusal. I was gutted. After all these years of putting Jack's needs above mine, this is how they repay me? I couldn't hold back anymore. I let out all the anger and frustration I've been bottling up for years. I told them how I've always been the one sacrificing, how they've always prioritized Jack, and that I was done being treated like I don't matter. I made it clear that if they choose not to come to my wedding, they're making their choice, and I'll make mine. With that, I walked out, leaving them to stew in their own decisions. Out of nowhere, Jack started bombarding me with the nastiest, most hurtful texts I've ever received. He accused me of turning Liam against him, of ripping the family apart, and had the audacity to call me selfish for abandoning him. He ranted about how he never felt like he belonged in the family and how it's all my fault for pushing him away. His words hit hard, but they also opened my eyes. Jack has spent his whole life blaming everyone else for his problems, and I've been his favorite scapegoat. This time, though, I'm not letting him guilt trip me. I didn't even respond, I just blocked his number. If he can't see what he's done wrong, then there's nothing more to say. Liam was livid when I told him about Jack's messages. He's more determined than ever to support me, and we've decided to go low contact with our parents until after the wedding. Liam's been a rock through all this, helping me with the wedding plans and making sure I'm not dealing with this mess alone. So, the wedding is still happening, but with a much smaller guest list. My parents haven't reached out since our argument, and at this point, I don't care if they show up or not. This day is about me and my fiancé, and I'm not letting anyone, not even my own family, ruin it. Update 2. 2 days after the text argument with Jack, he reached out to me. I wasn't sure what to expect when he asked if we could meet up, and I was reluctant, but I agreed. When we sat down, the first thing he did was apologize. He told me how sorry he was for what he said to my son and admitted that he didn't know why he said it. Jack seemed genuinely remorseful, and I could tell that he really meant it. This wasn't just another apology to smooth things over, this was different, and it felt sincere. After apologizing, Jack took a deep breath and confessed something that I probably should have seen coming. He told me that he had relapsed before the argument even happened. Hearing that hit me hard. It explained so much about his behavior in the weeks leading up to that moment, the irritability, the distance, the way he was withdrawing from everyone. I realized that I had missed all the signs. I'm not proud to admit it, but I was so caught up in my frustrations with Jack's behaviors and my wedding that I didn't stop to think that something deeper might be going on. Jack's confession wasn't just about the relapse, it was about taking responsibility in a way he's never done before. He went on to tell me that after realizing the damage he'd caused, he had made the decision to check himself into treatment. This might sound like a typical step, but for Jack, it was monumental. In the past, Jack's only gone into treatment because he was either sectioned by social services and forced into it, or because my parents threatened to kick him out if he didn't get help. But this time, he made the decision on his own. That was something he'd never done before, and it showed me that he was serious about wanting to change. He told me that he is doing this because the prospects of losing me, his brother, was too much and he couldn't handle it. He wants to take this seriously because he wants to show me he can do it. He told me he sees me as his family, and he feels so guilty for making me feel like I wasn't his family. Jack has also agreed to start taking medication to help calm his nerves, something he would never do before. It's now been about 5/6 days since Jack checked himself in for treatment, and I've been visiting him regularly. At first, I went alone because I wasn't sure how my son would feel about seeing Jack so soon after everything that happened. But after a few visits, I felt it was important for my son to see that Jack was making an effort to make things right. So, I brought him along, and Jack took the opportunity to apologize to him directly. It was a really emotional moment for me as a parent. My son is still young and doesn't fully understand everything that's been going on, but he could see that Jack was sorry, and that seemed to make a difference to him. They even spent some time together, just talking and playing, and it felt like a big step forward for all of us. Throughout all of this, my brother Liam has been incredibly supportive. We've talked a lot about Jack, and it's clear that Liam wants to see him succeed just as much as I do. We both know how much Jack's trauma has affected him, and while it doesn't excuse his behavior, it does help us understand why he struggled so much. Having Liam by my side through all of this has made me feel a lot less alone. Reflecting on everything, I've come to realize that I need to take responsibility for my part in how things escalated. In the weeks leading up to the argument, Jack had been doing things that really got under my skin. Instead of addressing it calmly, I let my frustration build until I finally snapped. Looking back, I can see that his behaviors were likely tied to his relapse, and I should have seen that sooner. I feel guilty for not recognizing the signs and for reacting the way I did, but I'm trying to focus on what I can do to support Jack now that he's taking his recovery seriously. When I wrote my first 2 posts, I was in a place of deep frustration with Jack, and though nothing I said was incorrect or a lie, I definitely painted a picture of Jack's most negative moments without everything else. I want to remind everyone about Jack's trauma. Jack was a victim of severe abuse by his biological family, including extensive CSA, Liam also, but Jack's was a lot more intense. Jack jokes now that he was their biological father's favorite in all the wrong ways. Jack got into drugs at a pretty young age, but has been clean, or so I thought, for a while. I mentioned this before, but Jack has told me in the past that even now, almost 20 years after he was adopted by our parents, there is not a day where he doesn't think/have nightmares about his abuse. He says the only moments of peace he gets is when he's high. Jack's trauma runs deep, and it's something that continues to affect him every day. I'm not making excuses for his actions, but I do think it's important to remember that he's dealing with a lot of pain. Despite everything, I still believe in Jack. I believe that he has the strength to overcome his past, and with Liam and me by his side, I'm hopeful that he can get through this. I also want to take a moment to thank everyone who offered advice and support on my last post. Your words helped me see things from a different perspective and gave me the push I needed to approach this situation with more compassion. There's still a long road ahead, but I'm optimistic that we're on the right path now. For now, things are looking up. Jack is taking his treatment seriously, and our family is slowly healing. We're taking things one day at a time, and I'm committed to supporting Jack as long as he's committed to helping himself. Thank you all again for your support. Your advice has been invaluable during this difficult time. Some of you may call me weak or naive for thinking this time will be different. But I am prepared to take that risk one more time for Jack, as he has shown me over the last week he is genuinely wanting treatment and he wants to be better. Jack's told me he wants to earn back his invite, but not to give it him yet. He said he will prove he deserves it. I really hope so. Yeah, some therapy would probably be useful. I haven't had it for a long time now. My parents are still being my parents. I've come to realize that every time they get involved in my relationships they just make things worse. But at least things aren't worse than they were before, and they apologized to me for saying they wouldn't come to my wedding. I have created a throwaway for this post. My fiancé is a Redditor, and actually introduced me to Reddit. But he doesn't usually come on this sub, so I'm hoping it will remain unseen by him. My fiancé, Max, doesn't see it, but his parents are extremely manipulative people. His parents adopted his two brothers when Max was about 12 years old. They were 8, Jack, and 5 when they were adopted. Max is his parents' biological son. From the point of their adoption, I get the impression that Max was parentified a lot. His brothers both had pretty severe trauma, and because of that they lashed out often. The stories he tells me of their childhood and how his little brothers behaved are horrific, for example smearing poo on his pillows and bedroom walls. Max was treated like another parent and would babysit his younger brothers for extended periods. His parents would then constantly berate Max about his brothers' behaviors. And how he isn't taking good enough care of them. The behaviors were from both brothers but mostly from Jack. Now Jack became an addict in his early teens. My fiancé says it's because of the trauma of early life, which I am sure there is a link, and about 5 years ago Jack got clean. However, he is still an extremely immature, rude and mean person. Who will constantly blame anyone else for his issues. Max is constantly making excuses for Jack, even when he's rude to me or our son. Jack in the past has texted me harassment from when even the slightest thing doesn't go his way. For example, he screamed at me, calling me a fat BTCH because I didn't hear him ask me to pass over the ketchup at a family barbecue. I now refuse to go to family events if I know Jack will be there. About 3 weeks ago I came to a family meal at Max's parents' house. I was told that Jack would not be there and he wasn't for the first half. However, he came late, and instantly I could see he was either high or drunk or something. I haven't seen him in a while, but it was obvious from that point he had relapsed. I tried to tell Max because I was uncomfortable and wanted to leave, but Max asked me to stay a bit longer. Which I did. I know I am an idiot, it won't happen ever again. In less than an hour Jack had caused a screaming match, and this time it was at my 5-year-old son, and it was over something incredibly stupid, like always. As soon as Jack started, I picked up my son and told Max that I am leaving and that he was a pathetic man for letting his brother speak to our son the way he did. To my surprise, this seemed to spark something in Max. He defended me and our son. And pointed out how toxic all his family were. He told them they were no longer invited to the wedding and that he never wanted to see any of them. I felt such pride in him. But not even 3 weeks later Max is already back to his role of trying to save Jack. Jack admitted that he had a drug problem again. I could have told you that from the one meeting I had, and to which Max is acting as if it is a huge shock. I literally told him on the drive home it was obvious Jack was high. Jack went in for treatment and Max is again acting like he needs to drop his life to protect and defend his family, who, let's be clear, don't even like him. If he doesn't act like their servant and punching bag, they don't talk to him. I am so disappointed that Max is already back to this, after he told me he was going NC with his whole family. And it is making me want to call off the entire wedding. Has been visiting Jack in treatment every day, which is against the recommendations of the place, and he said he wants to take our son to see Jack. I said if he takes our son anywhere near Jack again it will mean the end of our relationship. Now on to second story. Discovered my landlord had secretly installed cameras in my smoke detectors, and now I'm fighting to regain my privacy and sanity. I am a 26 female, living alone for the first time. My landlord has always felt a bit off to me. He is a man in his late 40s and has never been holding back with comments about the way I look, etc. When I moved in, he was very clear about me not touching the 2 fire alarms in my bedroom and hallway. He justified it by saying they were directly connected with the fire department and if I would try to do anything to them I would cause an alarm. The alarm in my bedroom has always made me feel weird. It makes a lot of noises, especially at night, almost sounding like a remote-controlled car and sometimes making a very muffled beeping sound. I brought it up to him once and he said it was nothing and if it should make more problems I should call him. But other things kept happening and I just more and more felt like something was off, but at the same time people kept telling me I was overthinking things and scared since it is my first time living alone. The first thing that felt off to me was as I was renovating to move in, I grabbed a wrong shade of the color I wanted for my bedroom and it ended up looking a bit too bright on the wall I tested it on. A few days later during a phone call he snapped at my parents about how horrible the pink was I was using in my bedroom and if I was crazy. I had not let him inside my place so I was very confused, but kinda brushed it off to me walking around in paint-covered clothing. But things got weirder after that. During January last year, I spent a day at my parents and when I came back something felt off. I couldn't pinpoint it and no one was inside my apartment, but I realized after walking into my bedroom a second time one of the drawers under my bed was pulled out and I don't remember ever touching it. Again I brushed it off mainly BC my parents told me I probably just forgot and I kinda ended up feeling ashamed for ever brining it up. Months later during the summer I took part in a gaming night on a friend's Discord server and when I finally hoped off to go to bed at 4 a.m., I came into my bedroom to see my underwear drawers being open. I panicked and called my mum BC, she lived close by and I wasn't sure if someone was still in the apartment. After that I installed a door chain and got an alarm for the time I spent at home. I suspected my landlord had a second key and now probably wasn't able to get inside anymore. But that didn't cover the time when I am not home. Sometimes when I come back furniture in my bedroom is slightly moved, but at this point my family keeps telling me I just forgot I moved it that I am too ashamed to keep bringing it up. I know I sound insane, but is it possible to have cameras installed in the fire alarms? Could I call fire department and their non-emergency number just asking if they can take a look at it BC of the weird noises? I really just want my peaceful life back. Constantly knowing someone might have been in here in the past while I slept is really creeping me out and making me want to cry. Do you have any advice on what I should do? Edit, here is a link to the pictures of the alarm. The first one is in the hallway, the second/third one with the open part is in the bedroom. I tried to take them secretly, so I apologize for the quality. Editor's note, the link doesn't work anymore. Edit 2, I never expected so many responses, so I will try to answer some questions here. First of all, my parents love and support me. I was just on a call with my mom updating her. I don't think she intended to gaslight me at all. They are not in contact with my landlord. My mom is reasonably upset right now and probably would go have a talk with him RN if she could. My landlord lives in another city. He just owns a bunch of apartments here. But he is here multiple times a week. I live in Germany, so any US law stuff doesn't really apply. Sorry for not clarifying sooner. My plan of action RN is, I am gonna call the fire department tomorrow morning to have them come by, and I have a family friend come by on Monday to put in new locks. I want to check the alarms, but I am not very tall and I don't have a ladder here RN, so I cannot rip them off even though I would love to. Update 1. I had a call with the fire department and they told me the alarm is not connected to them in any way, shape or form, and that it is extremely fishy that the one tinkered with is the bedroom one. I also completely forgot I do have a storage room that has an alarm that looks identical to the one in the hallway. They told me to ask around in my friends and family if anyone knows a bit about electricity and have them come by to take it of and take a look inside. They said it's very likely some kind of foul play happened here. Disregarding the camera problem, there is still a fire alarm someone just messed with and didn't fix. My mom's best friend is an electrician and I will try to reach him today to ask if he can come by ASAP. Otherwise I know he is going to be around on Monday, so I might have to wait a bit longer. Either way I will keep you updated. Thank you so much for your support. Edit, friend is going to stop by on Monday, so likely no update until then. It was advice not to rip them off in case there is anything wrong about it. Should I feel unsafe at any point I can crash at my parents or my sister's. Edit, I just want to clarify for those who are confused why I don't just rip it off. It belongs to my landlord. If it's true what one of the posters said and it is put up wrongly, my landlord can get in trouble for that, but so can I for ripping it off. I would have to pay both for a new smoke detector and a person to put it up, and I don't have the money to risk doing that. Okay, nothing weird has happened since then and I am pretty sure I will have more answers until then. The only other thing that I'm already doing anyway, was that a neighbor and I were talking, and while the topic of safety came up she just said you should change your locks without really knowing anything that happened to me here. Update 2. Today was very stressful. While as far as I know BC of my mom's friend my smoke detector is okay right now, but there is other stuff that came up. I don't know and can't say more about what is going on RN. I am not like to well known about what I would be able to say, but I rather not risk it, since there is ongoing police investigation. All in all I have made choices to keep my safety insured for now. Sorry for not being able to give some of you the closure they might want to hear. Maybe one day I might be able to share the full story of what happened. Until then, to all of you, thank you so much. You helped me gain the confidence to have things looked at, and to make my safety my priority. I hope things are going to be good for all of you in these crazy times. Update 3. To start this off, no, my landlord wasn't watching me. But this is how I found out that someone still did something with my fire alarms or tried to remove them without contacting the people who actually installed the alarms. I cannot say if it was my landlord or possibly the person living there before me. I did mention a police investigation that ended up being connected to this. Since the entire thing is finally over and I had some time to heal, I will add what happened that was in relation to this. My ex was stalking me and tried breaking into my apartment one night during the time I was still actively updating the Reddit post. I was at home during that time. ND thankfully was able to scare him off after locking myself in the living room. This was added to an already ongoing investigation against him, so I wasn't able to update this anymore. Since there was reason to suspect he might have gotten into my apartment at an earlier point while I wasn't home. I do not know if he was able to possibly get into my apartment while I wasn't home before the night where I was. Or if it possibly was my landlord. But everything that happened led to me not feeling safe anymore, and with the lockdown and the ongoing investigation my mental health broke down hard. My PTSD was running overtime and I ended up having to admit myself to a clinic for a while in 2022. I worked a lot on myself and changed things in my life. I am no longer living alone and I am in way better contact with my parents by now. I moved and I feel much better by now. I am sorry it took so long to update. The police investigation ended up making it to court and it took forever for things to be sorted out. After everything was over I struggled very hard for a while, but with the help of my support system and therapy I made it through that. The years were rough, but I thankfully am in a better place now. And yes, my ex did get punished for what he did. And all the fire alarms got fixed too. Again, sorry this took so long to update. I don't like thinking back to that time BC, it left a pretty deep scar.